Here we are, my friends, with my friend, old colleague, Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. How are you, Steve? And how do you react to all what has happened to Mr. Novak Djokovic? I immediately start with that.
Yeah, I'm fine, Ubaldo. I hope you are as well. I think it's a kind of a depressing episode, the whole thing for tennis, because I do have actually quite a bit of sympathy for Novak Djokovic. He made mistakes along the way in this process, no doubt about that. However, I think the way that the Australian government handled it is mystifying to me, because starts off with Tennis Australia and the Victorian government saying has two reviews of his information, two panels. They approve him. They say you're allowed into the tournament. So obviously he went over there believing he would get into the country. Well, obviously that's where all the trouble started from there. And I don't know why there were these discrepancies on his forms. I don't know why his agent checked the wrong box about Novak having been in Spain. There were some things that are confusing from his part, but I think in the end, I'm not sure, no matter what happened, even if he hadn't have done those things, Ubaldo, as I sit here now, I'm not sure that he he could have still been rejected on the grounds that he doesn't have a legitimate medical exemption in their mind. Victorian government and Tennis Australia thought he did, but the federal government did not. So I'm not sure, even had those mistakes not been made by Djokovic, and the dates and what he did in Serbia when he had been tested positive for COVID and going to meet with the reporter from L'Equipe, all those mistakes, I'm not sure that it would have changed the verdict in the end. Do you think so? Because I think the federal government was against him coming in they didn't agree with the Victorian government.
Correct. I do agree with you. I think that it was mainly a political decision, because, for political issue, because after 1 year and a half that the government is asking all this to all Australians to get vaccinated, and then some Australians were unable to come back to go back to their country and see their families because they were not vaccinated, and so that was there was a red light for whoever was not vaccinated. The real problem was made at the beginning from Mr. Craig Tiley or Tennis Australia, because they said, the light is not so red, it's yellow. You can come in. You have an exemption. Then exemption. Actually, apparently, the federal government said that twice. They had said that that exemption was only related to the Australian people, not to anybody else coming from abroad. So why Craig Tiley and Tennis Australia, they didn't follow up with that and ask and let's say to Djokovic, look, there is a problem. I mean, we cannot guarantee that you can come in. Djokovic went in because he was told he could, and he trusted the Tennis Australia. But the big problem, the big mistake was made by Tennis Australia first.
I totally agree with that. And it's confounding to me that Tiley and Tennis Australia would put Djokovic in that position. Now, they may claim later, I don't know what they're going to say when they eventually make some comments. They may say that they told Djokovic exactly what he had to have on his visa, and that they may try to escape the blame. But I just think they put him in a very unfair position. It came off like Djokovic was trying to break into the country, that he just was arrogantly flying over there and saying, you have to let me in because I'm Novak Djokovic, #1 in the world, and I've won this tournament 9 times, and I won a 10th, and I won a 21st major, and you can't stop me. That's not the way it was. So you do see it the way I do. I don't know why Novak, I wish he hadn't made some of those mistakes in terms of the forms and in terms of not having his dates straight about when he got COVID, et cetera. But that in the end might not have made very much difference.
Well,
I don't.
you know, there were quite a few mistakes by him because even, you know, he should have done that before December the 10th. Instead, he did it on December 16. Then let's forget about all the doubts that there were about his medical certification, because there was a German paper who pointed out that looking at the QR code, there were some problems. I mean, to identify when it was positive, sometimes it was negative, and the dates were a little conflicting. But that's as you say, not to be the problem. Maybe in a way, the fact that Novak Djokovic sent an Instagram and a tweet saying, "Hey, I'm coming to Australia," that shows how, in a way, in a good faith he was. Okay.
Yes,
Because if he didn't do that, nobody in Australia would have reacted immediately while he was still flying.
Yes, you're right, Ubaldo. But for some reasons I still don't understand. When he sent the Instagram that you just mentioned, he was criticized later. A lot of people said, "Oh, they thought it was arrogant of him. They thought it was that he was a sort of an in your face, as we say." I didn't interpret it that way at all. I thought he was happy to be going over. It was one of his typically positive messages. Happy New Year to everyone. I've received a medical permission. I'm heading to Australia. Go 2022. It was a very positive message.
Yeah.
And clearly he was excited about going, but people even criticized that. So
well, instead, you know, I totally agree with you. I only think that he has been very naive, because he should have thought that sending that messages in Australia, there would have been a big reaction by all those people who had been pushed to vaccinate and do the proper thing. So all those who respected 100% all the rules, included the players, because even all the players who are participating and are in Australia, they all went through the same process. So
yeah, you're right. You're right about all those are all fair points, and maybe he was a little naive. I think his intentions were good. Well, one last point about it, though, Ubaldo. Everybody also has been saying, the critics have most of his critics keep saying it was so simple. All he had to do was take the vaccine. But I think what they're forgetting is he has very unconventional views, and I think he's wrong about the vaccine, very wrong, in terms of what it will do to your body. And I think the scientific evidence is clear that it's safe and that everybody should take it. But he doesn't believe that. And so for him, it's a big deal, Ubaldo, for him. Otherwise, he would have taken it sometime after the US.
Okay, sure, it's big deal for him, but he has to accept that if you go in a foreign country, you have to accept their rules. And you cannot just say, "Oh, you know, I'm different. I am against," because he for 2 years he said he was against the vaccination. Then his lawyers during the night were trying to say that nobody could prove that he was no vax, but that was ridiculous. I mean, he was clearly against the vaccination, and
for himself. Yes, he wasn't.
Yeah, for himself. And so let's say, if you know, if you have been saying to the whole year to all your compatriots that you must be vaccinated, you have to follow the rules, then this Novak not only he wants to get in thinking that he has the right to get in, okay, but then he doesn't have the right to forget all the other rules. He doesn't put the mask. He talks with the press and don't tell them that he's already positive. You know, it's like I made this example in Italy. It's like a motorcyclist who sees a place where normally there is a red light. He sees a yellow light, he goes in, But then he doesn't wear the cask, the helmet when he's supposed to do it. He parks wherever he cannot park. And he does certain things that at the end, he gives a bad example. And what the lawyers of the administration of the government said is exactly like that. I mean, is not, you are a model. Whether you like it or not, a champion is a model who gets a lot of money from a lot of sponsors because he's considered a role model. If a role model makes things that you wouldn't like anybody else to do it, you have to make him to respect all the rules.
Yeah, I agree with that. But he was trying, although he didn't do the best job possible, trying to play by the rules in terms of applying for the exemption, applying for it. Then from there, he didn't handle it correctly in a lot of ways. But what I'm saying is it was traumatic. This whole thing with the vaccine, Ubaldo, it's possible if he won't change his mind that we might not see him play any major tournaments this year. Yeah, he may hardly play any tournaments if he refuses to change his mind. That's a big sacrifice. It's foolish, I think, but he feels that strongly about it, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Anyway, it was the state. It was a political decision, and more, and they didn't go even through the different details. I mean, the Australia didn't want to have someone who was not behaving the way they would like everybody else to behave. And then one thing is that they were the ones who allowed him to come, but then that was not the point for them. I mean, they would have decided to not accept him, whatever. I mean, that is my...
Ubaldo, one quick thing about that. If it gets back to what you said earlier, if Tennis Australia and Tiley and the Victorian government speak to the federal government, say, we have cleared him through 2 panels, we believe we are giving him an exemption. Is that all right with you? We need to know that when he arrives in Melbourne, you will accept him in the country. And they had said to Tennis Australia, no, we will not. Then it would have been up to Tennis Australia to go back to Djokovic before he flew over to the country. This is where it should have been avoided. Because imagine...
But apparently they had they said that they had written twice to Craig Tiley saying that they couldn't accept anybody coming without a vaccination if foreigner.
Then they should have conveyed that to Djokovic, who would never get on the plane. Then we have the other case, Ubaldo, we shouldn't forget, Varakova, the woman player who had been in the country played a tournament. Then they came after Djokovic arrived and the whole controversy erupted. They went back to her and said, we need to deport you. And she also had a medical exemption for the vaccine. So the government,
there is also another Serbian player who has been thrown out now. I mean, they told him to go back home, and he said, if it wasn't for Djokovic, I would have been playing. I mean,
but I mean, again, why? Then the question is, why did they make those other exceptions? Why did they let the woman player in the first place, or the Serbian player?
Because they didn't check. This is what I'm saying. If Djokovic had not written that Instagram and tweet or whatever, they would have not expected him with a bunch of state functionaries, officials, and he would have gone through.
That's the only point we disagree on. I think he still would have had the problems because he is Djokovic, and they know about his feelings on the vaccine, and we'll never know. We'll never know that. But all I'm saying, Ubaldo, is I really believe the thing that could have been avoided was Djokovic ever getting on the plane. And then if he had just pulled out of the tournament, this is what Pospisil is saying in his statement, is that Djokovic could have just stayed home if he hadn't have been given this exemption in the first place. So then imagine what the reaction would have been had that been the case. people would have said, well, why doesn't Novak take the vaccine? But it wouldn't have reached this fever pitch of emotion all over the world. This was one of the main news stories all over CNN and other networks for the last 10 days. And that would never have happened.
Anyway, now I wonder if the ATP has the power to decide that all the ATP tournament should be played only by vaccinated players or not. I don't know if they can do it, but probably they should, because if not, every new tournament, you don't know what to do. Because I mean, for instance, if Djokovic wants to go and play Indian Wells and Miami, can he play? Or the United States don't want people without having been vaccinated? I mean, there should be. I think the whole circuit should say, look, we believe that everyone should be vaccinated, and if you don't respect this rule, you don't play. That's about it. I don't know if they can do it. I don't know if they have the power to do it.
Well, I don't know either. I suspect they can. I think it's the U.S. government would have to weigh in here. And there's the ATP, and then later in the summer with the USTA and the U.S. Open, they should be speaking very carefully with the government. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Are we allowing exemptions or no exemptions? If there are no exemptions, then you release the statement. It's very clear. And I think that's what's going to happen, Ubaldo, so that in the case of Djokovic, he's going to have to really think long and hard about whether he wants this year to totally get away from him, where he can't play at all. A crucial year. He's turning 35 in May. He's trying to break the record for the most Grand Slam titles. All the work that he's done to put himself in this position, and he'd be missing one of the last prime years of his career, which would be sad.
Yeah, listen, I think we have been 10 days talking just about Djokovic and his saga, and now we may decide to talk about the tournament, but I would stop our recording here and start again a different one, so we talk about the tournament. Okay, you agree?
That's fine. Okay. Ubaldo, you're the boss, and I agree.
Okay.